I'm going to talk a little bit more about being a high performer. That's what we're talking about in the teacher training section today. And so I want to talk a little bit more about being a high performer and kind of sum up what we talked about in the teacher training, and then go into a little bit more detail on some more things that you can do in your daily stuff. And this time I'm going to focus some of the questions and change some of the questions so that it's more about improving your dancing, becoming a better dancer. But at the same time, none of this, this is about being a high performer, and that doesn't mean just, what was I going to say? That doesn't just mean when you're performing in dance competitions or performances or in your, or even in your teaching. If you're teaching, it includes all of that, but it's not limited to that. This is really about how to achieve your goals, and that's any goals that you have, and how to achieve them in record time, like how to be really effective in achieving them. And these are the types of methods that I use to go from being just another average dancer in my hometown of Santa Barbara. I wasn't even considered one of the best dancers in Santa Barbara before I became a world champion. It was just within a few months that I transitioned from being an average dancer to a world champion. And yeah, just a few months, not years, just months. And I can tell you more about that story as we go and how that happened. And in fact, I think we'll talk about that more specifically now, or not now, but I think when we talk about which section, I don't know, we're going to talk about it more. But right now, I want you just to understand how powerful the methods are for being a high performer. And these are the same methods that I also used to move to a remote town in the middle of Thailand to start a dancing from scratch, and managed to get on national Thai TV, and went on to double the size of 3 dance scenes in less than 90 days. And these methods are not that difficult either. The best part about them is that they're actually simple. And so much so that you've probably heard of a lot of them before. And so this is something I want you to be a little bit careful about, because it's easy to just say, yeah, Andrew, I know about this already, or I've heard that before, and then to kind of check out and not actually use the information that I'm giving you. So I want you to be really careful. And as I'm sharing these ideas, if you hear yourself saying, yeah, or I already knew that, or come on, let's move on, I want you to stop yourself and ask yourself, how well do I do whatever it is that he's talking about right now? Because that's what high performers do. They constantly are working on really fundamental things and then asking themselves, how well am I doing that? How well am I performing in that concept? I've done these kind of trainings where you become a high performer a lot of times. I don't know how many times, definitely over 10 times, but every time I do one of these, I take it very seriously. And when I work on them, I learn something valuable. I get a little more clear on how to accomplish my next set of what I would call my dream goals. And I say my next set because these things really do allow you to achieve dream goals, and so when I achieve them, I push myself a little bigger. Now my big goal, is no longer just to travel the world teaching dance, but it's to hold the biggest dance training, teacher and dancer training in the world. And that's why I went online. But if you had told me, 15 years ago that I was going to attempt that goal, that I'd be like, no way. I mean, even if you told me that I was going to be a world champion, or that I'd traveled to 231 cities and 35 countries, or that I'd had my dance idols take my classes from me, I wouldn't believe any of that stuff. I'd be like, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm just a regular old dancer from Santa Barbara. But I went through these trainings. I did some of these very basic concepts, and I just kept dreaming big and pushing and going for it. And it was a lot easier than I realized. So I know you guys can do this too. I know whatever your goals are, whether they're dance related or not, you can do them. Just remember that the key is in doing the fundamentals and more seriously, taking the fundamentals more seriously than the average dancer, right? Than the average person out there that's doing this. And that's, again, what the high performers do. They take the fundamentals more seriously than anyone else, right? So this brings me to a code of honor that I want to share with you, and I shared this with the teachers as well, but I think it's going to make everything much more effective and make things so much easier for you to do if you follow these kind of 3 code of honors. And that said, your learning process is also going to be much more difficult, painful, and slower if you don't open yourself up to be taught. And Kathy, Mike, I know you guys already are very teachable, and so that's great. And at the same time, I just want to remind you of these things because I get reminded of them every time I go through a training like this, and I think it helps. I think it's helped me a lot. So I want you guys to have these same kind of concepts as we go through. And we're going to go a little bit faster on this one because if you want, you can always jump back into the teacher training and see a more longer version of this, but I'm going to do a shortened version of the first part, and then we're going to go into more detail on some of the things I didn't get to cover in the teacher training portion. Okay, so becoming a high achiever and performer, where is it? Has 3 guidelines. The first guideline is to stay positive, right? And the reason why I say this is there's kind of 2 big reasons. One, there's enough negative people in the world, like we don't need more negative people, right? There's people out there saying you can't do it or that's not possible and that kind of stuff. And they're not the people that, they're not the people that got to the moon, right? They're not the people that have done huge dreams, at least not in my experience. Like all the people that I've trained under that have done huge things, they're positive, they're constantly cheering me on, and encouraging me and encouraging themselves and encouraging everyone else that they interact with, so I think one thing, it's just great to bring more positive energy. And the other thing is I want you to enjoy your process. I'm going to have you go for some really big goals, whether they're dance goals or life goals or whatever. I'm going to have you go for some really big goals, and it's important to enjoy that process because if what if you die 2 days from now and during the next 2 days you were going for a big goal, but you didn't enjoy it, you didn't achieve it, then why did you even go for the goal? But if you enjoy every day, every time you go for a goal, every moment of that process, then it really doesn't matter if you achieve the goal or not, because it's who you were, it's what you did while you were going through the process that matters, right? That makes a difference on looking back on your life and looking at whether you're proud of how you lived, right? So first guideline, stay positive as you're learning this stuff. You're going to have some struggles. You're going to have some hard times. Be okay with that. And that actually fits really well with the next one, which is honor your journey, and there are going to be struggles, especially if you're going for a big goal, a dream goal. The journey is not going to be easy. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be what some people would consider failures. I'm putting air quotes around that. But actually, let me just jump back here for a sec. It's so important, I think, to honor the process and to honor those struggles, and not just to, I would say, get excited when you start to struggle. Get excited when you fail, right? Because those are the steps that are necessary to get you to succeed, right? Like if you look at, I believe it was Edison who invented the light bulb, and he said, he didn't fail 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. He just learned 1,000 ways not to invent a light bulb, right? But those were every one of those was important for him to be able to then invent the light bulb, right? And it's the same with whatever you go through in life. I'm sure you've gone through struggles before where at the end of the struggle, something great came out of it, right? And if you really push through some of your struggles, great things come out of them. And if you know that that's what happens at the end, then you can look forward to the struggles because you know that you're about to break through to figure something out that's really valuable. So I wouldn't even say like be okay with the struggles. I'd say when you see a struggle, get excited because you're about to learn, right? When you fail at something, get excited because you just had a huge learning opportunity there. And all you have to do is look at it and learn from it, right? And then you get to do it better next time. So that's a part of its own thing of honor your journey, through every step of the process, and be excited about that journey and be excited about every step of it. The next thing I want to say, let me jump back. Actually, I don't know. The slides aren't that necessary right now. The third thing, although maybe it's good to see it visually as well. Let me share it with you. The third thing I want to say is common sense equals common practice, or make common sense common practice. And this one's important because it's so common, I think, for people to go, yeah, oh, I knew that, or I understand what you're talking about, and then never actually apply the common sense into their life, right? So like an example, like in dance, is we all know that that grounding. I mean, not everyone knows this, but something that a lot of people know is that grounding is important. I want to say grounding is a very valuable concept to understand, right? And to be able to adjust your grounding to each partner is something really valuable, right? But how many people actually practice that on a daily basis? How many people actually get out there and do the extreme practice drills of just pressing against something? And it's something so easy. Actually, let me show my screen again. This is something that you could be doing on your regular life in like 3 seconds per day. You could be doing, I mean, it wouldn't take much time at all to just, as you're about to move something, like you're about to move this chair, instead of just moving it like without really thinking about the grounding first going and pressing up against it, pressing up until you get that squish in your fingers and you can feel your legs having to resist and your body having to resist the pressure against the thing you're about to move, right? You can feel your whole body connect to it, right? And then move it after you feel that, right? And you can do that with anything. Literally, you go to pick up your phone, if I go to pick up my phone, I can first feel the pressure that is required to touch it, and then I can lift it, right? So every time in your daily life, you could just have maybe 3 or 4 what we call behavioral triggers, human automation things, where every time you go to open a door, instead of just immediately opening it, you first apply pressure and then you do it, Or every time a fridge door is actually a really great option because it has a very specific amount of pressure. You want to try to find that amount of pressure that you feel against the door. It's not opening yet, but you can feel it's about to open, right? And that is what we want to do when we're leading somebody or when we're following. A lot of the time is we want to find out how much pressure that person has before they start moving, right? And everybody has a really different amount. And every time you lead something, like literally every single time you touch your partner to move them, like this is something that is extremely valuable to think about ahead of time, right? But most people just gloss over it. Sure, they've done it once or twice, but do they do it on a daily basis, right? So, and this is just one example. Like if your goal isn't to get rid, that might not be something you do. But my point is that this is common sense, but it's not necessarily common practice, right? So that is the third thing I want you to think about is as we're going through this stuff, make sure that even though it might be something where you're like, yep, I understand that, I get that, really stop yourself and ask yourself, how often do I do this? As I'm doing whatever it is, how often do I do it? Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is SMART goals versus dumb goals. And and how I don't know if you've heard of SMART goals before, but usually they're SMART because they're called specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And that's a great method to achieve a goal. However, I think it's actually a really poor method to start achieving goals. It's more for specifics. It's later that you want to start thinking about SMART goals. First, you want to think about what we would call dumb goals. And I'm totally stealing this from Brendon Burchard. And a lot of the stuff today I'm using from him because I think he has really good words for things. I've done a lot of this before, but he uses great acronyms and things like that. So I'm using his stuff so you'll remember it a little bit better. So his dumb goal is a dream-focused or, well, technically the whole thing is dream-focused, uplifting, method-based, and behavior-triggered. And let me explain what that means. So a dream-focused goal, let me jump back. And a dream-focused goal is one that you are really excited about, that is really a dream for you. And we'll talk about how to figure out what kind of goals, or how to figure out your goals, because some people, they've been so used to SMART goals and so used to the regular life that they stop dreaming. They forget about dreaming, and their dream goals, you know, are things that really aren't that exciting, and they're not the things that are going to motivate them to get up in the morning and to do something with their lives. So I'm talking more about things like, you know, I mean, going to the moon was a great dream goal, right? It was like, we're going to try to get to the moon. And if you think back in the time, that was something that was ridiculous. Most people would have been like, yeah, right, there's no way you're going to do that. But they didn't listen to those people. They stayed positive. They worked through the process, honored that process, and took and accepted the failures and struggles and things like that, and worked through them, figured out a way, and eventually they got to the moon, right? So I'm talking about that kind of stuff. You know, for you, it might be a dance goal. It might be becoming a world champion, or, you know, maybe you don't care about that. Want to have a sold out dance. You want to be like constantly, everybody's asking you to dance, you know, like when you walk in the room, everybody comes up and is like, oh my God, I got to dance with you, you know? And I don't know what your dream is. You know, maybe it's not a dance goal. Maybe it's more along the lines of creating some environmentally friendly product or something like that. But we'll give you a structure on how to do that, how to find your dream goal. But that's the idea, is first you gotta dream big. You gotta have something that makes you excited to actually do the SMART goals, right? And then the next thing is it being uplifting or exciting. You know, I like the word sexy, not sexy in the sensual way, but sexy as in it attracts you, right? It makes you like really want it. It's very attractive. And inspiring might be another way to look at it, but something that's that excites you and is uplifting. And the reason I think that that's important is because, again, if it's not inspiring you, if it's not uplifting, like, even though it's a dream goal, it's probably not your dream. It's probably just one that someone put into your mind. You know, I mean, we all grow up being told, like, you should become a doctor, or you should be a lawyer, you know, like all these different things. For me, it was an engineer, you know. So if someone asked me what my dream goal was like 20 years ago, I might have said something along the lines of engineer, but like, would it have really excited me? Not really. It was just kind of what other people told me should be my dream goal. Next thing is method-based, right? And this one, method-based, means you should have some form of method to achieve your goal, right? Someone has done it before or something that's good. I don't think this one has to be so precise because for me, you know, there wasn't really anyone that was traveling the world teaching dance for Lindy Hop when I originally decided that was one of my dream goals, was to travel to teach Lindy Hop. So, there were traveling to do other things, to teach other dance forms. There were people that were, you know, high-level trainers that were being hired by tons of people to come in and train people, not on dance, but on other things. So I started trying to figure out what methods they were using, since there wasn't anyone that was really doing the traveling, teaching dance in my world. And that's not to say people weren't traveling to teach dance, just not to the degree that I wanted to. They weren't doing it as that is their living. That is the full-time thing they are doing. There are people that were doing it as like their side, you know, like one part of their living, and then they were teaching lessons at home, and then, you know, once a month or once every couple months they'd go somewhere else, or they might do a month-long trip, right? But my goal was to do it year long, you know, and for 15 years, I was traveling almost every single week of the year, somewhere different in the world to teach dance, you know, and I was able to do that within probably about a year of deciding that was my goal. I started doing it, maybe it wasn't every week, but it was pretty close. It was like 6 months every week traveling, and then 2 or 3 months off, and then another 6 months traveling, and then 2 or 3 months off. Until I got to the point where I was literally teaching 49 events a year out of 52 weeks, right? So there wasn't, my point is there wasn't a method already like laid out for me, you know, and now I'm working on laying that method out for you guys in case you want to be able to do that, and not for it not to take, you know, probably took me 9 years before I got to the point where I was teaching every single week, you know. So I'm laying out that method so you guys can get to it much, much faster. But that's one example of something. But maybe that's not your goal. Maybe your goal is to teach local lessons, or who knows what your goal is. But having some form of method, even if it's not exact, trying to follow the people that have done similar things can be helpful, you know. And then the last thing is behavior triggers, right? So you want to have behavior triggers, or I call it human automation or manual automation. And that's the idea that when you do one thing, something else automatically happens. For instance, like when I get into my car, I automatically put on my seatbelt. I don't even think about it anymore. It just happens. I've done it so many times. The second I sit down in the seat, it feels uncomfortable for me to not put on my seatbelt. So that's what we would call like human automation, or a behavioral trigger, is when you do one thing, something else automatically happens without you needing to think about it, right? There's great ways in the teacher training. I actually talked about a way to remember to put your keys in a spot so you don't lose your keys, right? How to create a behavioral trigger to avoid losing your keys. And these things can be created for all sorts of different things. But when you're going for a real big goal, it's the more of these kind of automatic triggers that you have that just set you up to do something immediately, to do something towards your goal, the easier it makes your goal, right? Because on a daily basis now, you're actually achieving something, moving towards your goal. You know, maybe it's just as simple as every time you get in the shower, you do what we're going to talk about in later day. You reclaim your day, right? And we're going to talk about what that means later. But basically, you take a moment to make sure that your day is going to go the way you want it to. Whereas most people, their day goes the way other people want it to. And I'll talk about that more as we go through this. Okay. Let's see, what's next? One last thing I want to say about these SMART goals versus dumb goals is that a SMART goal set before dumb goal is usually just a distraction that doesn't matter to you in the long run, right? So what I mean by that is, like, if I set a SMART goal, what's a SMART goal that I've set in the past that really didn't matter to me? Okay, like an example was, you know, one of my goals was teaching private lessons. You know, at one point teaching private lessons was a SMART goal and really building up my private lessons, you know, and that might be a great dumb goal for you right now, but at a certain stage in my life, private lessons were no longer what I would have called a SMART goal, or a great goal for me, not a good SMART goal for me, because I had gotten to the point where now I was teaching huge masses of people and affecting, you know, 50, 60 people at a time, sometimes up. I mean, I've had 5,000 people in a room that I could affect all at once, you know? So affecting one person, well, I still love doing it and I still do it as like a passion project for me. It doesn't help achieve my end goal of, you know, affecting 1 million people nearly as well. You know, or if it does, it really, I have to be clear, like, why am I teaching this person private lessons? Like, are they really gonna eventually go on to teach thousands of people, right? And if they are gonna go on to teach thousands of people, then I wanna help them, you know, because then I'm sort of affecting through them. But if they're mainly just interested in improving their dancing, you know, there's hundreds of other teachers that can help them improve their dancing, you know, and so, I usually limit my private lessons. Like if I travel somewhere, I actually limit it to 2 private lessons wherever I go. And I still do them because I love being able to help people, you know, and if they want that help, I want to be able to give them that help. But I need to put a limit on it because it's not really the best way to make a difference in my current dream goal, right? And that said, for you, it might be a great stepping stone for you to sell out your private lessons. And I would recommend that, you know, that is a good step, is actually go and sell out your private lessons. That gives you confidence. You know that you're doing something that's valuable for people, and gives you a lot of practice to actually improve your teaching and things like that. So for some people, that's a great goal, and I highly recommend that. And that's actually why I created the execution plans for you guys on teaching private lessons, booking private lessons and becoming sold out, creating raving fans, rebooking more lessons and creating raving fans, and also the raise your rate and stay sold out. You know, all those execution plans that are now in Dance Ninjas for the teachers are there because of that. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. My point is, a SMART goal set before a dumb goal is usually just a distraction, you know, if it doesn't align well with your dumb goal. And we'll be talking about that as we go. All right, so now what I want to do is show you I want to show you the questions, and there's 9 of them. I'm not going to go through them all, but I just want you to see the questions that I went through, because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what your dream goal is. And so I recommend going through each of these questions in order to figure out some dream goals for yourself. And the only thing I'm going to say, if you want to learn a lot more about this, then I recommend checking out the teacher training. It'll be up in the coaching call Vault for Teachers, or the teacher training Vault, probably tomorrow or the next day. And so I recommend you know, if you want more detail on this, do that. But the only thing that I really want to talk about is that last number 9. If you knew how to achieve whatever goal it is, would you do it, right? And if you go through this process and then you get to question number 9 and you say, no, I wouldn't do it. If I knew how to, you know, become the most loved dancer in my dance scene, I wouldn't do it, then something's off about your dream goal, right? Like, it's not a great dream goal for you. So what I'd recommend is that you start over and you go through them again, or you adjust your dream goal to the point where maybe it might just be as simple as like, as adjusting it some small bit. You know, maybe you wouldn't become the best dancer in the room because it's going to take you 2 hours every day to do that, and you only have 1 hour every day, right? So you're like, oh, so I'm not going to do it. Well, then guess what? Your new goal is to become the best dancer in the room in 1 hour every day, right? And if you knew how to do that, would you do that? And then you say, yeah, okay, right? And it's an important thing to really make sure that your dream goal is a goal that you're excited about, is a goal that, you know, if you knew how to do it, and you would do it, you know? And then the next thing is just figuring, like, once you say yes, then you might be like, okay, but I don't know how to do it. The only thing you need to do then is just figure out how, right? And decide how much time per day you want to spend to that. It could be 1 minute, it could be 5 minutes, you know, it could be an hour. It's up to you how long you want to spend towards that goal. But it's important to go for your goals, to you know, I think it's important, at least. I think that's what drives us. That's what makes us excited to live every day, is when we have those dream goals that we're going for, you know? That's what keeps us from just becoming monotonous, like going through the motions, people that are just doing the same things every day and not really going anywhere with it for themselves. And not that there's anything wrong with that if you're enjoying it, you know, maybe that's your dream goal, is to spend your life like just doing the exact same thing that you're already doing, you know, and just enjoying it, just loving it, you know. The other thing I want to say is, throughout all these questions, I recommend spending just 30 seconds answering each one. And so I would set a timer for 25 seconds. And then once that timer goes off, it reminds me that it's time to wrap up and move on. You know, I don't need to set a second timer to really make sure I'm done at 30 seconds. If it takes me 35 seconds, or takes me, even if it takes me a minute, it's not really that big of a deal. But the point is to keep myself going and to answer all these questions. You know, technically I can get all of these questions done in less than 5 minutes. But if I don't set a timer and I try to go through these questions, it's probably going to take a couple hours. And when I know something's going to take a couple hours, I put it off, you know, a lot of time. Not all the time, but a lot of time I put it off. So by really going, okay, I'm not giving myself more than 30 seconds for each, it allows me to go, I can be done with this in 5 minutes. And maybe I'll miss one, maybe one of the questions I won't have an answer for. And probably by the end of the 9 minutes, I'll have an answer for that question. And I can go fill it in another 10 seconds, rather than sitting there like going, oh, what's the answer? I don't know. Or I have an answer, but it's the perfect answer, or something like that. So give yourself a time limit. You know, if you want more than 30 seconds, you can have more than 30. I've done 30 seconds with many different dancers on this, and it always works really well. And part of it might be because I'm there with them, so they can just talk to somebody about it that's taking notes. But yeah, it's very valuable. And by the way, if you guys want a private lesson on this, this is something you can hire me to do, is to take you through these goals one-on-one. But I do limit my time. And so I don't personally want to be spending more than an hour per week on this kind of stuff. So if you are interested, definitely let me know. And we can see if we can work out a time. Okay, the next thing. So now I want to get into this stuff we haven't covered in the other training. This is all about taking back your day. And I think, you know, once you have a big goal, then like you've got to look at like, how are you living on a daily basis? Are you actually making a difference on a daily basis towards this goal, right? So I would ask myself the question, how effective am I being? You know, how effective is my day? How effective is your day, right? Like when you think of your day, you know, and you think about it, at the end of the day, have you spent enough time? Wait, what? Sorry. At the end of the day, when you look back on it, do you say, wow, I took some serious steps towards my goal? You know, I got stuff done towards my dream goals, right? Or do you just, I mean, and then another question is, do you even look at the end of your day and ask yourself something like that? Because if you don't, then how do you know if you're even going for your goals? How do you know if you're going anywhere if you don't, at the end of every day, check in with yourself? And at the end of every day doesn't have to be, right before you go to bed. It could be at the end of your workday. It could be at 7 o'clock every night or whatever. But at some point, you've got to decide, I'm done working on that goal. I should have tried to accomplish something towards my goal today. And then you want to look back on it and be able to say, yeah, I took some serious steps towards it, right? And I'm going to teach you how to do that in just a second, but it's really, I want you to think about how well you're doing right now, right? And how many days in the last week where you looked back and went, wow, I took some serious steps towards my dream goals today. I got stuff done today that mattered. And when I say that mattered to me, not to someone else, right? Because your daily job, it still matters. You're still doing like whatever your daily job is, even if you're, no matter what you're doing, you're making a difference in the world to some degree, right? But is it something that matters to you? Because that's what fills our soul, right? That's what excites us. The next thing I would say is, do you have a ritual that starts and ends your day? Do you have a ritual to start and end your day with, right? And if you don't, I highly recommend getting one, because that's the biggest thing to taking back a day is, one, having a method to set yourself up so that you do take your day back. And two, being able to look at it at the end of the day and then actually say, yes, I did something, or no, I didn't. How am I going to improve for tomorrow? Right? And I'm going to give you the ways that I do this. But you don't have to use my ways. You can use your own. That said, let's take a look at mine. So my morning ritual is really important that I get inspired, right? That's the first thing I do, is I get inspired. And I do that by two ways. One, I start off with some gratitude, what I call gratitude exercises. And this is something that I was taught by Blair Singer, Brendon Burchard, like all the top trainers in the world. Like, I don't know about all of them, but a lot of the top trainers constantly come back to like making sure that you're thankful for everything that you're doing in your life. Let me jump back. And so when you're being thankful to other people, like, it just fills yourself with joy and makes you remember that that there's a reason that you're going through all this, and that it's worth it, and that you have things to be thankful for. Some people forget that they have things to be thankful for, and they go through their day just starting out like, this is what I got to do, and this, and all the crap that's going on in their heads that sucks and all of that, right? So starting out the day positive, going, what am I thankful for? And I've got an extra tip that's going to make this even more powerful. I use this. My teachers didn't teach me this. I just took this on as another level of being grateful. And it fits with what we were talking about earlier about your struggles and things like that. And so when I write down, they say to write down 10 things you're grateful for. And I actually just set a time limit on it rather than a number, because I love to be efficient. And I usually get like at least 10, maybe like 15, sometimes even 20 things. I set a 45-second time limit. And I just start listing things off that I'm grateful for. My dad, my mom, the people that are training me, dance ninjas, you guys, the dance ninjas that are doing these trainings, my girlfriend, food, coffee, and I start listing these things. But inevitably what comes up as I'm listing these are some struggles, some things that I'm not grateful for, some things that, like, subconsciously I'm not grateful for, because I've been trained throughout my whole life that failure is bad, that struggles are wrong, right? So the extra trick that I do is when those pops in my head, I actually write it down and think of a way to be grateful for it. Like I think about, what's an example? I went through financial struggles, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to pay the bills this month. And so I wrote down financial struggle, and I'm going to be grateful for it. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, why is this valuable for me? And it was because, you know what? I'd never really had struggles with finances. When I was traveling the world teaching dance, I didn't have struggles with finances. It's only when I went online that I started having struggles because I didn't know how to do it yet. I didn't know how to teach dance online, and I didn't know how to sell it, right? So for me, like I spent $30,000+ just trying this thing out without figuring anything out. And then like I was like, whoa, I'm about to go bankrupt. And I like had to figure things out, you know? And at that time I hadn't figured it out yet, but I was like, I am thankful for this financial struggle because it's going to teach me how to figure out my finances, you know, in a couple different ways. One, it was just going to allow me to learn how to be financially responsible, which in the past I just made so much money that I didn't need to be. Whereas now I was learning something about financial responsibility, income and income and expenses, very basic stuff, but stuff I just didn't bother with. And the other thing that it taught was also I'm learning how to, I've got to learn how to really sell dance online and really do this in a proper way. You know, I'm still learning it. I'm still figuring it out and tweaking and adjusting, but oh my gosh, I've come so far from when I first started. And a lot of it was really the kick in the butt that was like, you know, Andrew, you're not going to make it. You know, you're going to go bankrupt if you don't make this happen. So that's, for me, I wrote down the thing that I would have thought of as a negative, and I was thankful for it, and I came up with ways to be thankful for it. So that's kind of the bonus thing for me that I would throw in is as you're writing your grateful things, throw down some things that you would normally not be grateful for, and then figure out a way to be grateful for them. You know, there's always a way to find the positive and find the learning in your journey, in your struggles, in your failures. What next? Oh, the other thing that I do is I go with motivational videos. Like every morning, I love doing this because it makes me so inspired to just get going with my day and do stuff that matters, is I actually watch something inspirational, you know, and for you guys, it might be this video. You could literally just pop on this video if you feel like this is exciting you, or maybe there's even just a 5-minute section of this video that you really like. Pop that on in the mornings and watch it, you know. And maybe instead of this video, you know, Tony Robbins is a great motivational speaker. He's got a lot of audio. I'm sure he has video. You know, if you don't want to do that, maybe some music, maybe just putting on music that inspires you and gets you moving, you know, Eye of the Tiger or whatever song inspires you. But something, and I say morning, my morning is like noon, you know, I don't wake up until late in the day. But when you wake up, it's kind of a starting point for you, and you want to get on the right track. You want to make sure that you're moving and doing things that are going to keep your day going awesome, right? Going to keep you inspired. So that's why I'd say do that in the morning, you know. And if you have a day job and you want, let's say you want to do something to improve your dancing and you're going to do it after your day job, like you could do this in the morning, and then once right after your day job, before you go into whatever it is you're about to practice, you could do another gratitude exercise or just watch a motivational video. You know, or if you really don't like your job and you don't want to be inspired when you go to your job, you could skip doing it in the morning and just do it after your job. Although I don't recommend that, because I recommend, even if you don't like your job now, like there's ways to like whatever you're doing. And if you do these before you go to work, like these types of things will make you enjoy your work more. You know, you'll start to see things that you're excited about in your work. And you might be looking to get out of your work, but every moment that you're still in your work, you might as well enjoy it. You know, until you stop doing it and you're doing something that you love, at least enjoy whatever you have to do in the meantime. And there are ways to do that, you know, like, I mean, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, all these people, like they talk about, like, it's all about your mindset. It's all about coming into it with an attitude of enjoying it, you know? The next thing that I think is really important is I when I'm taking back my day, right before I get started on whatever my goals are for the day, I look at my dumb goals and I compare them, my dumb goals, my dream focused goals, and I compare them to today's goals. And I ask, do they align? Does whatever my goal for today do, or whatever my goal is for today, does that help further my dream goal? You know, does it help further what I want to do with my life? And if it doesn't, then I change my goal for today. I don't put that task on the list. Um, and sometimes some tasks maybe align in some way that you don't realize, like going to work. Today one of my goals is go to work. Well, if you need enough money to survive, and you need to survive your dream goal, like in some way those align, right? There might not be an immediate thing, but it's still something that aligns with your dream goal. There might be a better way to go about it, right? There might be a way to do something besides your regular job that gets you your dream faster, and still gets you paid. But until you figure that out, go ahead and do the regular, whatever it is that's getting you at least that you can survive to get to that dream goal, right? And then love it. Do something, really put everything into it for the time that you have to be there. All right. The next thing is I want you to take back your evenings as well. So at the end of the day, look at your daily goals and look at, like, which ones did I complete? Which ones did I not complete? Which ones did I move forward? For the ones that you completed, go ahead and check them off with a big old check mark, and with the ones that you didn't complete, but you at least moved forward, well, put a little plus by them, and then the ones that you didn't accomplish. Now, this is important. I want you to ask yourself, why didn't I accomplish this goal? Was it because I didn't have enough time? And if I didn't have enough time, why didn't I make the time? Is it because this goal, maybe it's because this goal really wasn't worth completing. Maybe this goal is a goal that's like, yeah, it's cool, but it doesn't align with my dream. And so I'm not really excited about it. Or maybe it's because I don't know how to achieve it yet. And so maybe instead of tomorrow putting the goal of achieving it, maybe tomorrow my goal is to learn how to achieve that goal, right? Yourself accomplishing your goal, and then is it worth making the goals that I didn't accomplish, is it worth making them a goal for tomorrow? Is it worth putting them in as part of my goals for tomorrow? Or do I need to change them to make them a better goal for tomorrow? Or should I just delete it completely because it wasn't a great goal in the first place? And it's really cool when you do this. Let me jump back. When you do this, and you start checking off, it's really exciting to start checking stuff off. And to be honest, the first day or two, you're probably not going to check things off, right? Unless you set some really simple goals. Sometimes I throw in some really simple goals just to keep my momentum going, like brush my teeth, that's a simple goal. But there was a point in my life where I hated brushing my teeth, and I'd actually didn't do it every day. And so at some point in my life, I actually made that a daily goal, and it was something that allowed me to be excited that I accomplished something, so even if I wasn't accomplishing anything else, at least I accomplished that one thing, and I would actually do this whenever I did it. I go, yeah, like that, because I wanted to teach my body to associate this motion, this motion, the fist pump, right? Let me jump back here. When you go, yeah, like that, I wanted to associate that motion with a positive, which is another tip for you guys, is it's kind of a behavior trigger to use. Like if you do this and every time after you feel like you succeeded, they start to connect. So whenever you do this, you'll feel success, even if you didn't brush your teeth or whatever it is if you didn't accomplish something. So every time you accomplish something, if you do some action, it doesn't have to be a fist pump. It could be like raising your hands in the sky, whatever works for you to make you feel like you're successful. Do that often enough. And then you can do that like right before you go into a big meeting of some sort, or not like as dancers, right before you go teach a dance class, right? Or right before you do a performance when you're dancing, right before you perform. If you just like, yeah, do your fist pump or do something like that, all of a sudden you feel that success from all those other times. It kind of jumps into your body, and it makes it much easier to go out without as much nervous energy. So it's a great tip on its own. But jumping back to what was I talking about? The goal of looking at your daily goals and checking them off, and making sure that you did these goals. It's really cool to be able to see yourself actually checking things off. And like I said, at first you might not check anything off the first day or two. And then your goal might be to figure out how to start checking stuff off, right? Because that's an important part of this whole process, is starting to see success on a daily basis. And I know, again, all this stuff might sound simple. You might feel like, I already have lots of successes in my life. Great. Are you recording them? Because that's a fundamental, right? And that's what I'm talking about. A fundamental, like something that's so easy, a common sense that might not be common practice, right? Are you actually writing down at the end of the day what you did and that you had a successful day? Or that you didn't have what you would consider a successful day, which is still a successful, if you check these things, if you still look at it and recognize that it wasn't successful, that's still success, because now you get to learn from it and you get to decide how to make the next day better, right? But without this checks and balances, without actually tracking what you're doing and looking at and actually proving to yourself that you're doing something, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to just go along and not, 10 years later, you had the goal of inventing this product that's going to change the world, and someone else did it, or you wanted to teach a dance class or do a dance performance, and someone else took the idea and someone else ran with it, and that's not to say you can't do it too. It's just to say, like, why wait? And sometimes it's someone else doing it that inspires you. I know for me, it was actually when Dax Hawk did his online school. I'd been wanting to do one for like 10 years. I'd been thinking I need to do some form of videos and stuff like that. I want to do an online school. And then Dax went and did it. And I was like, dang it, that's what I wanted to do. And it actually, instead of just being mad and being like, oh, he did it, oh well, I decided, you know what? It's time for me to do it, and I went for it, and here I am, actually running an online dance school, and that's all I'm doing right now. That's what 100% of my focus for the last year and a half, maybe even 2 years, has been on making this dance school rock, and I'm excited about it. It's coming along, it's something that I'd always dreamed about, and I'm doing it. And you can do your goals too. You can do whatever it is you want. Like, I'm sure that you have some dreams that you could accomplish. And even if you didn't accomplish them, you'd probably accomplish something that was really, really powerful for you. That's the other thing about honoring your journey. A friend of mine once, he told me a story that like really it made a lot of sense. So I want to share it with you. He was saying, he had the goal of making $1 million. Let's say that's the goal. I don't know exactly what his goal was anymore. I can't remember that part, but it doesn't matter. Let's say his goal was making $1 million, and he went for this goal, and he went for it, and he made $500,000, and he was disappointed at first. He went, gosh, I didn't make my goal. And then, you know, he started talking to his dad and telling his dad about everything that he went through, you know, and had accomplished and had not accomplished. And his dad said, wow, that's really amazing that you got $500,000. I'm really proud of you, son. And immediately, like, he just lit up with joy. And he went, oh my gosh, $1 million was never my goal. My goal was to make my dad proud. You know, my goal was to, yeah, to make my dad proud of me. But if he hadn't have set that $1 million goal, he never would have figured out what his real goal was, right? It was by setting some huge goal that, and striving for it and going through it and going through that process, going through his failure, right? That made him realize what his real goal was and made him realize that he had achieved it. You know, that he had achieved his goal. And to be honest, like, when I look at my goal of traveling the world to teach dance, I don't know, that wasn't my original goal. My original goal was to actually just travel the US, putting on dance camps for kids. And in order to achieve that goal, I needed to go to Harang, you know, and take 4 weeks of straight lessons. And this is actually the story that I wanted to tell you. How I went from being an engineer and someone who was an average dancer in my hometown to a world champion was, you know, I graduated as an engineer and I started searching for jobs online as an engineer. And just after a couple of months, I realized this is not what I want to be doing. I want to teach dance. And so I decided, okay, I created a dream, you know, I want to teach dance. And I'd already had a taste of it. I'd already taught summer camp for kids, you know, so I knew what that was like, and I was like, maybe that's what I want to do. I want to teach summer camps for kids, and I'll travel around the US doing these little summer camps in different cities. And I thought, okay, I actually tried one. I did one, but as I was doing it, I was like, okay, how do I get my classes packed? I need to compete at the Worlds, you know, because just being able to say that I competed at the World Championships is something that's going to allow me to get, you know, all the ballet students and those people excited about me because I'm a champion. Now, I didn't know if I was going to win or not. Like, I didn't even know, honestly, if I was going to be allowed to compete in the actual Worlds, because you had to do a prelim session in order to even get into Worlds. You know, they only took the top from each country. And then they also had one competition for people that didn't already compete, that just wanted to do a last chance. It was basically a last chance round. And that's what I did. I jumped in the last chance round to see if I could even get into the Worlds to compete. That's what I knew I needed to do. So I bought plane tickets to Harang, which was 4 weeks of classes. And I knew that was going to help me. And then I committed to being, you know, competing at the Worlds and doing the last chance round. And here's the cool thing about this. Here's the mind-blowing thing. Like, I wasn't a world champion the moment that I won the title. I was I don't think I was, at least. I became a world champion. I might not have the title, but I started acting like one. I started dancing like one. I became that champion the moment I decided to do that. That I decided that that's what I wanted, you know, and not just decided, but I committed to it. I bought plane tickets to go to Europe for a month to train and then to compete after that month, right? And that's the moment that I really changed. And I realized this afterward because of this. You know, I mean, the moment I got into Harang, I was killing it. I was in every jam circle. I was just making a name for myself. And I didn't realize this at the time. I only realized this afterwards, when after I won second place, this one couple that runs this other big dance camp in Europe, they came to me and they said, you know, we saw you in Harang and we loved you. We thought you were amazing. You know, and I was like, why would you think I was amazing back then? I hadn't done anything, you know, but I had, because I already had committed, you know. And so they were already interested in hiring me for their event before I won Worlds. And when I won Worlds, that was the kicker that was like, we're getting you. We won second place. But once I had that title, it was like they knew that they could hire me, and theirs was literally one of the biggest dance camps in Europe at the time. So they couldn't just hire anyone. They needed names in order to pull the numbers that they needed in order to pay off the dance camp in general. So I did probably need my title in order to get that one gig, but all the other gigs I got after that, like none of them even, like maybe some of them, but a lot of them probably didn't even know that I had won Worlds because I didn't talk about it. Like I was too shy and nervous about it. I didn't want people to think that I was bragging or anything. So I never mentioned it. I'd always just be like, hey, I'm coming through your town. Do you want me to teach? But my point is that the moment that I decided that that's what I wanted to do and that was my goal, and then I actually set a plan to get to it, that's the moment that I started acting differently. That's the moment that I no longer started dancing like the average dancer in Santa Barbara. Because when I used to do jam circles in Santa Barbara, I'd go in them, but I'd be timid. I'd be like, okay, here we go, but everybody's looking at me. I don't know if I'm going to be any good, and I just wasn't acting like a champion, right? But that moment when I chose to do all those things, I started acting like a champion. I started doing the things that I needed to do in order to become a champion. And I became that much quicker than I ever thought possible. So that's why, to me, like the goals that I'm taking you through, are so important. Doing that goal structure, getting your daily routines together so that you're actually working towards things. These are all things that are so valuable to get you to achieve whatever your dreams are fast, right? To get it really, really fast in record time. And they work. I'm a byproduct of them. Like these things that I'm teaching you are things that people taught me, right? Maybe I've improved on them a little to help you go a little bit faster, but they're the same concepts that I was taught that I then used to go and become a champion, to go and travel the world teaching dance, to go and, be on Thai television. I've been on NBC as well, in movies on NBC. It's what allowed me to start an online dance school, and get past all the fears that I had going into that. So these fundamentals are hugely valuable. Take the time to do them. Go through. I'll have the list of everything. I'll have this whole recording on Dance Ninjas. This one will be in the dance training. There'll also be one in the teacher training that goes a little bit more detail in all the things that we talked about for the first half hour. Those will be up. I'll make sure the slideshows are up as well. And probably pretty soon, I'm even going to create a whole execution plan on just being a top performer, so that you can have more ways of being a top performer and really excel. I hope you've enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, toss them in. I'm willing to stick around. We are out of time technically, but I'm willing to stick around for an extra 5 minutes to answer any questions that you have. If not, then I just say thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. And I'm just going to stick around another 30 seconds to give you the chance to ask questions. Oh, and while I'm waiting for your questions, I just want to remind you, go ahead and check out the different, if you're, dancer or teacher, everybody has access to what I call the Start Here guide. And that is a killer guide. It also goes through some stuff on how to be a top performer. It's really brief. It's not nearly this long. It's probably maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes of stuff on being a top performer. But then it also goes through and explains everything you have in Dance Ninjas and how to use that as a top performer, how to use it in the best ways possible. So I really recommend checking that out as well.